Recently, me and my buddies bought an old Jeep Cherokee together, and ever since we bought it, we've had the idea of putting Longhorn horns on it. Kind of fits the vibe of this thing, and that idea slowly kind of morphed into making our own metal ones, and that is what I am going to be doing today. I decided to make these out of rebar, so I headed off to Lowe's to pick up some rebar. After that, I headed to my buddy's house to make some cardboard templates real quick, just to get the sizing and the shape right. And I also stole some of his tools. You'll see why we needed those later. Alright, let's get bending. Except he didn't start bending, because that dummy forgot. He had to cut out some big metal rings first.
Hey, shut up, man. That's not cool.
Oh, whatever. Get back to work, man. Psh, wouldn't want to be that guy. Now that I cut out these rings, I expand them just a little bit because I want a slightly bigger radius. And these are going to be what I weld the metal to. So now I mark out and cut a sizable piece of rebar and start bending it. I added these little structural bars while the camera was charging, so I didn't record it, but that gives it just a little more structure, so now when I really start to try to bend on it, they won't deform, and the width of at least this part won't change at all. So now we're going to try to put a bit of a curve in it to make it look like a really natural horn. Well, my grandparents are visiting and they're using our 50 amp plug at the house. So now I'm down here at the barn where we have another one, thankfully, and I'm set up with the welder. So all the welding and cutting will be done down here. So let's get to it. So now this is just a rinse and repeat of bend, cut, weld, bend, cut, weld, bend, cut, weld. Alrighty, now we have all the basically skeleton of the horns. All we have left to do is fill in all the gaps with more rebar, but those will be a lot shorter pieces and a lot more simple to make because we only really got one bend going on here. So this is really the bare bones of our thing, and I can already tell this thing is going to get heavy. But we already knew that, but man, it's a little heavier than I even anticipated. So, well, let's get to it. Bend, cut, weld, 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 bend, cut, weld. Alrighty, we have the shape all put out in rebar. This thing is freaking heavy, but I'm really happy with it. Next, I'm going to switch to the sanding disc and really shape up the ends to be pointy and probably add a little bit of metal and everything like that. Then we'll start building out the middle section. Alrighty, before I start on the middle section, I'm going to try to achieve a gradient using wire wheels and everything. So I'm going to try to lighten the metal here in the middle and then have it get darker to the end, and then I'm going to use heat to try to get this dark again. Just like if you look at real Longhorn horns, they kind of have that gradient, so I'm trying to go for that look with just the natural patina of the metal. Now I did end up spraying the tips with a little bit of a dusting of black spray paint. And while the results are subtle, this is what it looked like before and after, and I do think that it really does make a difference, especially in person. The camera doesn't pick it up nearly as well, but it does give it that final little bit of oomph that I feel like these horns needed. Alright, I'm going to cut the ends off of this wrench, and these are going to be our bolt mounts so that we can mount it to the car, and it'll have a little bit of a cool wrench flair to it, as well as this wrench will be kind of thrown in there somewhere. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but we'll see. So now we move on to the central cylinder. I start out by cutting out a nice rectangle. And then bending it around this pipe, which is the same pipe I cut the rings out of, so it should fit up nicely. Now I move on to detail work. I cut out these strips of metal as kind of banding over the middle. And here I am bending the wrenches I took from my buddy's house. Shh, don't tell him. And these are also going to be put in the middle to give it just that extra little bit of pizzazz and a rat rod kind of aesthetic. Now this is a cool little technique I decided to experiment with. It's just adding little dollops of weld to look like rivets, and I think it turned out pretty good, and I also believe it melted through the sheet metal to the other layer of sheet metal, so I do think it actually worked as basically rivets. And finally, I sprayed it with a little bit of this matte clear enamel, and it's done. Alrighty, this isn't exactly its final mounting place. In fact, it's not even mounted, it's just kind of set here. But I figured I'd give you guys a little bit of a clip on how it's going to look with the car. It'll probably be mounted a little more kind of forward-facing situation. But yeah, other than that, that's it for this video. Stay tuned for more work on this thing. We have some exciting project ideas coming up on this. Just got seats for it and everything, so come back for that. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down in the comment section below. See you all in the next one.